What's up, everybody? Welcome to Celluloid Fever Dreams, a weekly walk through cinematic history where we find the overlooked and underappreciated films and tell you whether or not they're worth your time. As always, I'm your host, Wyndham Jennings. This is episode 32 and part 5 of our Dollar Movie Find series. This week's movie is from 2014 and it's an Australian black comedy crime caper called Kill Me Three Times. Written by James McFarland. In fact, this is, from what I can tell, the only film he's ever written, which part of me considers to be a shame. Directed by Kriv Stenders. His most recent film is Slim and I, but he's also directed the illustrated Family Doctor, Boxing Day, and the Red Dog films. The film's tagline is, "Once is never enough." Not the biggest fan of that one. I feel like I kind of phoned that one in. The film stars Simon Pegg, Elisa Braga, and Teresa Palmer. Our elevator pitch for the plot can be summed up as, in a small town on the Australian coast, a hitman finds out that he's not the only one gunning for his target. Yeah, I gotta say, I'm kind of a sucker for these kind of films. I mean, who doesn't like a good crime movie? Who doesn't like a good heist movie? Well, yeah, I guess this is a heist movie. You got people trying to pull off an insurance scam, and on top of that, somebody else stealing money from a bar. So I love a good crime movie. I especially love like the British crime movies. I don't think I've really seen a whole lot from Australia, but this kind of has that flavor to it. And on top of that, it's got sort of the Pulp Fiction kind of framework to it, which I also love. I love movies that sort of play with the way a story's told, either the technique or the order in which events unfold. I'm trying to think of some other ones like this. One I've seen recently that I think really did this well, another heist film that played with the order the story is told, Shimmer Lake, which is available on Netflix, and stars Rainn Wilson, who we talked about in Permanent a couple of weeks ago. But it does that. It starts out at the end of the heist when there's just the one person getting away with the money, and it builds the story backwards from there. Until the movie ends with the heist being pulled off, and that's when all the pieces finally fall into place. It's another one. I'm probably going to wind up talking about it eventually, but until then, it's another one you can go and watch. The film follows Charlie Wolf, played by Simon Pegg, a hitman, with an unbelievably cheery ringtone on his phone. And it's interesting to see Pegg cast as the villain. In fact, from what I was able to find out, that's one of the things that attracted him to the film, was he got to sort of play against his type in this movie. And the director himself has said that when they were casting the film, he wanted someone like Pegg. He wanted Pegg, but if he couldn't get Pegg, he wanted a comedian. He wanted somebody you didn't usually see in these kind of roles, because he thought the script demanded that. And he even said that until Pegg was attached to it, the script itself was much darker in tone. But once they got Simon Pegg on board, they were able to push some of the more comedic elements of it, make the story a little I think even he says it exists within its own little world. They didn't really worry a whole lot about making it realistic or dark or the way a lot of these films kind of turn out to be. And I think that works to its advantage, especially if you got Simon Pegg playing the villain in the piece. But and that's not to say there's not some dark moments in the film, because there are, but they're more dark comedy moments. They're not dark, bleak moments like in like High Rise or some other films. But Pegg's called in to kill Alice, played by Elisa Braga, and once he starts following her and trying to find the right time and place to kill her, he quickly finds out that she's the target of someone else in the town. The local dentist and his wife, who are going to fake the wife's death to cash in a huge insurance policy for a scam to pay off the husband's incredibly large gambling debts. So the first part of the story is basically Pegg finding out that his target is, all he has to do is watch and follow the dentist and his wife and make sure that they kill off Alice and then go and collect his paycheck. So that's the first story, which is called Kill Me One Time, the first segment of the film. And we get to see that and get to see the relationship between the dentist and his wife, get to see it's really some of the funnier parts of the film, as they have no idea of what they're doing. There's one sequence where Alice, they've knocked her out and she's in the trunk of the car, and then the husband's driving and gets a flat, so he has to pull into a gas station to change the tire, and he's trying to get the spare out of the trunk while moving around Alice's unconscious body to get to the spare without alerting anyone else at the gas station that he's got an unconscious woman in the trunk of his car. Now, I found it interesting. They kill Alice by putting her in a car and setting the car on fire and then letting it go off a cliff where it explodes and burns. And, of course, they switched her dental records, and she's wearing the appropriate jewelry, so she'll be identified as the wife named Lucy. But as the car goes off the cliff and there's a wide shot of it going down the hill in flames and exploding, it's CGI. And according to the director, when they started planning the film out, that the site they chose, the permits they would need, the cleanup, the all of that, the price of the car, and it turned out the site that he wanted to use to show the wreck was an Aboriginal sacred site, so he'd have to get permission from them as well. He said all of that mounted up to way more than what they needed in their budget, so the car crash itself and the flaming wreckage you see at the bottom of the cliff in different parts of the movie is all CGI, because it actually came out to be cheaper than just setting a car on fire and throwing it off a cliff. Which just fascinates me that we've reached a point that it's just cheaper to do it in CGI, and the CGI is pretty good. There's a couple of close-up shots on the car as it's going over the edge of the road and down the cliff that you can kind of tell the flames aren't real, but it happens so quick, and the actual shots of it going off the cliff and down are wide shots. You see most of what you see is flame. And I couldn't tell until I found that out, that they didn't just set a car on fire and throw it off a cliff. Alice is played by, and I wasn't pronouncing this right, this is the way they pronounced it in the promotional materials and the interviews I looked at researching the film, is Elisa Braga. Her first role was actually in the yogurt commercial when she was a kid. She's a Brazilian actress. Her breakthrough role was in City of God in 2002. She's also made appearances in I Am Legend, Repo Men, Predators. Most recently, she's been seen in the Fox film The New Mutants, and the television series Queen of the South, which I think I just wrapped up. Series finale maybe earlier this year, late last year. Lucy, who is the receptionist at the dentist's office and also married to the dentist, is played by Teresa Palmer, an Australian actress. Her first role was Wolf Creek, the Australian horror movie. She's also had appearances in The Grudge 2, The Sorcerer's Apprentice, I Am Number 4. Most recently, she's been in the AMC series, A Discovery of Witches. She's also in Warm Bodies, the zombie rom-com, the Zom rom-com, I think is how they pitched it when it come out. Her husband, Nathan, is played by Sullivan Stapleton, and this is kind of a different role for him. From what I can tell, he does a whole lot of action-oriented, tough guy kind of roles, and here he's sort of a bumbling kind of screw up. I was trying to think of a polite way to say it so I can still keep a PG rating for this, but yeah, he's very much a put upon husband, as Lucy's constantly calling out everything that he does wrong. Sullivan's first role was in the TV movie Baby Bath Massacre, and I have been unable to find out anything about this movie other than the title. Just from the title alone, I want to see this. I mean, what in the world is Baby Bath Massacre? He's also appeared in the films 300, Rise of an Empire, Animal Kingdom, Gangster Squad. He's, for several seasons, been on the television show Blind Spot. And I think he really does well with the character of Nathan, especially given his background in such action-heavy fare. Nathan just constantly seems to be just sort of stuck. I hate even calling it indecisive, because you can sort of tell, especially in the scenes he does with Teresa Palmer and Lucy and their relationship, that it's not that he's stupid. It's just that he gets sort of locked into what can he do that's not going to get Lucy to yell at him because he chose to do this instead of something else. Of course, there are scenes in the movie where you realize he's probably not that bright, considering he's a dentist, and the training they have to go into it is he's trying to remember a 4-digit code in one scene of the film, and he finally snaps his fingers and goes, "Oh, it's Beethoven." And Lucy's like, "What do you mean it's Beethoven?" He says, "1812 Overture. That's how I remember what the code is." And of course, Lucy, in her best sarcastic tone, just gives him an evil look and goes, "1812 Overture's Tchaikovsky, you idiot." We find out that Alice and Lucy are actually sister. Alice is actually Lucy's sister-in-law. Alice is married to Jack, and together they own the local bar. Or I found this out. It's called apparently called some weird old Australian law. Their bar is actually called a hotel. They have to offer beds for some of the drunken patrons to stay overnight if they can't drive. But Jack's played by Callan Mulvey. His first role was in the, I think his TV series, Heartbreak High. He also had appearances on the Beastmaster TV show. He's also another heavy action star. He's been in Zero Dark 30. He also appeared in 300 Rise of an Empire alongside of Sullivan Stapleton. He's been in Captain America the Winter Soldier, Batman vs. Superman. Recently in the World War II horror film Shadow in the Cloud with Chloe Grace Moretz. The television series Luminaries. At the time of this recording, July 2021, he actually has a film coming out in the next few months with Megan Fox called Till Death. I've seen the trailer for it. It actually looks like a pretty decent action film. Jack and Alice are not happy. Jack doesn't really seem to do a whole lot to help run the bar. Every time you see him, he's just sitting in the office in the back drinking, and no reason's really given for it. I don't know if he's like in the film. There is no reason given for him to just be back there and not to care about the bar. You can tell that him and Alice have a very strained relationship, and he keeps saying that he'd rather see her dead than with someone else. Doing a little research in the original script, his whole attitude of drinking himself to death and not caring about anything and saying he'd rather see her dead is because he had terminal cancer. The director said that in the when they did the test screenings for the film, people became very sympathetic towards him instead of Alice, because they felt like he had a motivation for being a jackass to her and to everyone around him and to just sit back there and drink. He said so he actually had to go back in and re-edit the film to take out any mentions of him having cancer so that we could get people to realize, get people to sympathize more with his wife than with him. But Alice herself isn't squeaky clean. She's having an affair with the local gas station owner, Dylan, played by one of the Hemsworth brothers, Luke this time. His first role was in the Saddle Club. He's made a couple of small appearances in the Thor films. If I remember right, he was Thor in Ragnarok. He was the Thor in the play with Matt Damon at the beginning of Ragnarok, if I remember right. He's also had appearances in The Osiris Child, The Westworld Show, Young Rock, The Young Rock Show. Oh, Lord, I read that, I'm like, what is Young Rock? I didn't write down that, oh yeah, it's the show on NBC about Dwayne Johnson's childhood. Took me a second. So yeah, he's been in Young Rock. He's also in the thriller with Maggie Q, The Death of Me. Yeah, all of this sort of moves together, and this is the Kill Me Two Times. This is this middle story. Follows these characters as we find out that Alice is going to leave Jack. Her and Dylan are going to run away, and he hadn't been able to sell his gas station, so they don't have any money. So she just steals all the money out of the bar and takes off with it. And of course, Kill Me Three Times, which is the final little vignette, mainly focuses on Lucy and Nathan, and we get to see everything from the first. And I kind of like this. Every time they start a new story, we get to see a couple of scenes from the previous story, but told from the point of view of the characters we're following this time. And Lucy and Nathan, we get to see a little bit more about how, about the trouble that they're in, about, why they chose Alice, about how Lucy doesn't like Alice, things like that. And we're introduced to the final character out of the cast, who is Bruce, played by Brian Brown. His first film role was all the way back in 1975 in the detective film Scobie Malone. And he has been in a little bit of everything. He's pretty much an acting legend. He's been in A Town Like Alice, Thornbirds, FX. He was in the Tom Cruise film Cocktail. He was the other bartender, the one that taught Cruise little tricks and everything. In the Nicole Kidman film Australia, he plays Bruce, the local law enforcement officer, and the very corrupt local law enforcement officer. He's shaken down Jack and Alice for a case of whiskey. He goes by Nathan and Lucy's dentist's office in order to remind them that he owes, Nathan owes $250,000. And he goes, oh, and I'm getting a cut because I told him that I'd be the one to make sure you paid it. So let's just make this an even $300 you owe me, and you got a week to get it to me. And I like it because he's menacing, but he's not he's not physical about it. There's no waving of guns. There's no I think there's one point where he does pin Nathan against the wall for a second. But it's all just quiet menace, and the tone of his voice and things like that. I want to talk a little bit more about what I do like about the film. Even the director mentions this. It kind of gives off an 80s feel. I mean, it's a modern movie. They have cell phones, computers, things like that. But just the tone of it, and I think part of it is for a crime movie, for a movie filled with a hitman and with people doing insurance fraud and killing off relatives, etc. With all these dark acts going on, it is a very sunny film full of bright colors. Simon Pegg is the darkest thing in the movie, both I don't know if I'll say character-wise, but he's jet black hair, black mustache, solid black suit. And everyone around him, it's just sunny beaches and bright colored buildings, and everybody's dressed in bright clothes. And so it's a nice contrast. I think that's one of the things I like about the movie is it's not a lot of dark alleyways and low lit bars and things like that. Everything's just so sunny and open, and it just sort of doesn't match the story that's going on, but that's one of the things I do like about it. The director also talked about some of his influences, which I've seen. I've read a couple of reviews, and some of the things people didn't like. The directors actually said there are some of the things he went for. He said he was sort of influenced by things like Pulp Fiction. He is influenced by the Coen Brothers type of films. He said he watched a lot of when he was prepping the movie. He sat back and he sort of watched some films he liked and tried to match some of the things they did, and he thought they did right. The story structure itself, actually, he mentioned that they did break it up a little because it was a little more straightforward when they first put it together. But once they started looking at Simon Pegg's scenes, they realized he was kind of the thread that held it all together, and that's what made them sort of mess around a little with the timeline and break it up a little more into 3 separate stories that all merge together to tell a big story. And it's especially amazing how much Pegg is in the movie when you find out that he only had a 2-week window to go to Australia and film this before he had to be back for other projects. So the directors mentioned they actually had to film the end of the movie and a lot of the big action scenes. I mean, there's not a lot of big action scenes in the film, but like the film climax and some of the big action scene on the first day, basically, in order to make sure they got it and Pegg could get out of there and they could finish the film on time. In fact, Simon Pegg was the one who fought for the film to end the way that it did. When they first showed it to the studio and the distributors, they weren't too happy with the way the film ended, and they we're talking about, how much money would it take to reshoot and what could they do to fix it. And Simon Pegg basically told them that the only reason he did the film was because he liked the ending of the film the way it was. And so he's the big reason that the story didn't get changed that much before it got distributed. And Simon Pegg, even according to some of my research, had a huge influence on the way the character, not only the personality of the character, because the director said with the cast he had, he did allow them to improv through a few scenes and basically put in the scene that he thought, or the lines he thought was better. But Simon Pegg, when he was talking to the director about the character, he's like, I just kind of see him with dark hair, with this mustache, maybe a tattoo on his neck, dressed all in black. And the director's like, everything he pitched at me, I thought, that's it. Let's just go with that. Yeah, the sunny brightness of the film is also a bit of a shock when you find out that how much rain they had to fight in order to get some of these scenes done. According to what I was able to find out, it rained so much during production that they had to take advantage of every break in the clouds and every bit of sunshine they could get in order to get the movie done on time. And on top of that, there was a couple of times the director talked about in one of the behind the scenes things, they did a couple of really key scenes in a quarry. And he said we actually had to sink a car into the water of the quarry. He said it turns out that the water was not fit for people to go into it. Apparently it had E. coli and some other bacterial things inside of it, and it wasn't declared fit. He said so we had to sink a car into it, and then we had to figure out a way to get the car out. And then there's one scene where the car, when they first put it in, floats. And so, Lucy and Nathan are trying to figure out what to do. And Nathan's like, well, she's like, dive in and do something. And he gets down to the edge of the water and he just puts a toe in. And he's like, nope, it's cold. And then the car starts to sink. But, the actor talks about that there was so much wrong with the water in the quarry. He said, even though all I did was dip my toes in, he said, I immediately had to, after they yelled cut, get my entire foot basically disinfected because of how much the water was contaminated in that quarry. Nathan also improv'd a scene. Alice almost escapes from him and Lucy, and she hits him with a crowbar she finds in the back of the car. She hits him with a lug nut wrench she finds in the back of the car, and he's laying there in the road, and he can't get up and chase her, and Lucy gets in the car to chase her. It backs up so that she can get room, and just hear a whomp, and you see Nathan just laying there she's hit him with the bumper. And the director talks about it in the behind the scenes. Says that was still completely improv. He says he decided to try it, and he said backed up and he smacked the bumper so she'd know to stop, and then she peeled out, and he said we added a louder thump in post production. But it's actually one of my favorite little moments, just showing how bad Nathan has it and how little Lucy even thinks of him at that point. And I know I've mentioned how bright the film is. I do love. I love some of the shots in the movie, the settings of it, and they talk about they bounced around several different places in Australia and sort of put them together to make you think they was all close together. But I think some of them, I think in one of the driving sequences, he actually talks about where they start at and where they end at is literally 5 hours away up the coast. But the way they've edited and this little fictional town that they've created for the movie, it's just the other side of town. But the cinematography, there are some beautiful shots in this movie of the Australian countryside and the coastline, and some really great shots. There was one, especially Nathan and Lucy are at a beach house. She's in hiding, and it's just this beautiful aerial shot. And he's like, yeah, if we were making this movie literally 2 years later, that would have been a drone shot. He goes, well, no, that's a crane. And just some of them is it's amazing. Kind of makes me want to go there, even if everybody lives down there is kind of crazy and trying to kill each other. The cinematography on the film is just amazing to me. And the story itself, I don't know. I've seen some people online saying that it's derivative, but I liked it. I mean, like I said, it's a dark comedy. The heist elements of it. I'm kind of like I said, I'm kind of a sucker for this broken story structure anyway. But I do feel like it's a fun movie to watch. Seeing how all the different pieces slot in together, because every story you find out something new that makes something that happened earlier in the film make sense. The actors in it, I know I've said this for a lot of films, but yeah, it's a really good cast. Like I said, especially Nathan, what was his name? I know I wrote it down. Sullivan, sorry. Had a brain fart for a second. I was like, what is Nathan's actor's name? Yeah, Sullivan Stapleton as Nathan. I just love him, especially because he's done so much action stuff to pull off the comedy that he does, to make this, tall, broad-shouldered guy into this just sort of clueless, kind of wimpy person, and especially the chemistry between him and Teresa Palmer's Lucy is just amazing. I think the chemistry between the two of them is my favorite relationship in the film. And it's also one of those films that, and I guess this is what you'd expect out of the genre, but it is one that just right up until the final 10 minutes or so, they're still throwing a twist at you that just changes everything that happened before. And I didn't see it coming. I honestly didn't. I went in figuring something completely different than what actually happened in the film. Yeah, and I don't want to spoil it for you. I'm not going to tell you. But yeah, at the end of the day, well, let's go ahead and do it. At the end of the day, let's ask the most important question we can ask of any movie. Was it entertaining? And yeah, I loved this movie. I know it's got low ratings all over the place, but no, I did. I really enjoyed it. I know Simon Pegg, who I just realized I hadn't even listed out some of the films that he's done, but do I really need to? All right, I'll do it right here at the end. Who you know from his first role was Six Pairs of Pants back in '95, but he's been in so much stuff. He's been in Spaced, Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, The World's End, or otherwise known as the Cornetto trilogy, Star Trek, Mission Impossible, Paul. But yeah, I like this. I like it because you don't see him cast as the bad guy very often. I honestly, off the top of my head, cannot think of another movie where he plays the bad guy. I also tend to like some of his more, I don't know, lesser known films, like Run, Fat Boy, Run. Oh Lord, what was the other one? Is it An Amazing Fear of Everything? Burke and Hare, the film he did with Andy Serkis and Isla Fisher. I like the like I said, I love the ones he does like that, the ones that are a little off the beaten path a little more than and I love him in this one. This is actually the second film where he gets stabbed through the hand by somebody. The first one, of course, being Hot Fuzz. So yeah, is it entertaining? Yeah, I love it. This is one that I'm going to keep and I'm going to watch again. It's one that I'm going to seek out a couple of other films that the director Kriv Stenders has done, and check them out, because he seems to sort of hit the spot I like with dark humor and storytelling. And I'm a little disappointed that James McFarlane, this is the only film that he's ever done. So if you want a dark comedy crime caper where, well, let's just be honest, if you're going into this, you kind of know this, not everybody walks out alive. Check out Kill Me Three Times. You can find it currently if, at the time of me recording this, if Just Watch is correct, on everything from Amazon, Hoopla, Vudu, Tubi, Crackle, Pluto TV. Like I said, I bought it for $1. So, and I feel like I got my money's worth. And just because I brought it up for the last couple of films, on Letterboxd, it has 6,700 members have logged in and say that they have seen the film. So it is one of the lesser known comedies out there, and it's got Simon Pegg in it. I mean, just for that reason alone, you should consider checking it out. And I really do. I do kind of wish they would do another movie with his character of Charlie Wolf, either a prequel or sequel to this one. So that's going to wrap it up for this week. Next week's film is called Rehearsal for Murder, and it's from 1982, I believe. It's an early role for Jeff Goldblum. Also stars Lynn Redgrave and Robert Preston. It's the little summary on the back of the DVD says, "To Catch a Thief meets 10 Little Indians." Story sounds kind of interesting. Kind of looking forward to watching it. I hope you like what you heard this week. If you like what you heard, tell a friend. If you didn't, tell an enemy. Either way, wherever you downloaded this from, wherever you're listening to it through, be sure to leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. And leave us a review if you can. Reviews help the algorithm out, help new people find us. And let's be honest, I'm never going to be satisfied with numbers. I'm always going to want more people to listen. If you have an idea for a film you want me to talk about, if you want to correct me on something I said in an episode, if you just want to reach out and say hi, you can find me on Twitter at CFeverDreams, Instagram at Celluloid Fever Dreams, or TikTok at CFeverDreams. And that's going to wrap it up this week. As always, I've been your host, Wyndham Jennings. Hope to see you here again next Thursday. Or not. I mean, I don't know what day you listen to this at, but the next one's going to be next Thursday. And until then, take care of yourself, be kind to others, and I'll save you a seat as long as you're bringing the snacks. Good night, everybody.